You are listening to the Navigating Adult ADHD podcast, where it's all about education, support, and coaching for adults with ADHD. I'm your host, Zena, a late diagnosed ADHDer, here to help you unpack the challenges, frustrations, and the positive side of living with ADHD. With my no BS approach, I'll help you to better understand your unique ADHD brain and how you can work with it to feel better, increase your self-confidence, improve your relationships, and ultimately achieve your goals. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Navigating Adult ADHD. Oh my gosh, I am so happy to be here with you today. So this past weekend, I've got to tell you real quick, I was in Christchurch for the New Zealand ADHD conference. It's the first one that they've held in Christchurch, the second one that they've had for the year. And I've had the privilege now of speaking at both of them. And it is just so wonderful getting to meet so many more of our community in person. So if you were there and I got to meet you in person, I am so grateful that you came to say hello and, ask questions and share your stories. It was so cool to meet so many of you guys. And I just got to say, I'm meeting so many new people. I forget names, I forget faces. I used to be so good at faces, and now even faces, I'm forgetting. And so I just have to apologize. My working memory does not remember all of the things. Okay. Give me time and I do. Generally I can jog my memory with a certain conversation or something that was said. I remember people's stories really, really well. But I did start to feel oh my gosh, I wish I could just remember everybody, but my brain just can't hold all of the sticky notes. So yeah, again, it was such an incredible experience. There were so many fantastic speakers and just wonderful conversations being held, whatever. And so good just to see so many of our community coming together. And yeah, it was an awesome event. So it was run by My Spirited Child, and they are going to run them again next year. They've already set the dates. So if you're in New Zealand, there will be in Auckland and Christchurch, and hopefully we're pushing for a Wellington as well. And if you're in Australia, they do hold them all over Australia too. And if you are outside of that, they do them virtually. So definitely worth exploring because they are an incredible conference. And they are targeted specifically for ADHD, but they speak to not only adults, but families, kids. We kind of try to incorporate teachers and other, people who work with and support other neurodiversities as well. So anyway, fantastic event. I am still buzzing, can you tell? One more thing to tell you before we dive into the life-changing power of just 5 minutes, and I want to share something very cool with you. I want to tell you that when you listen to this, the doors to ADHD Home are open. Now, ADHD Home is something I've been talking about and teasing about for a while now, but time blindness meant that it has taken a little bit longer than I thought it would to get it open. Anyway, so ADHD Home effectively is a membership, and it is for adults with ADHD, and it is what I am calling the home of all things ADHD. Now, that's my vision for it, is to be a home for anybody who is diagnosed or identifies as having ADHD. You don't have to have an official diagnosis, but you're wanting to learn how to work with your brain, okay? So it is combining three things. Coaching. So there are regular group coaching calls where you can come and get coaching and get support, and you can also come and ask questions. So there are regular calls where you can ask questions. How do I know if my meds are working? And what do I do when my my friends and family, I combined those words. What do I do when my friends and family just don't get it? How do I know if I'm on the right track? Or what do I do? I've just been diagnosed. So this effectively is a place where you can come and be amongst community. Gosh, I'm not explaining this very well. Let me start again. It's made up of three core components: community, coaching, and courses. Okay. So you can learn how to work with your ADHD brain with courses. So I have got, when you join, you'll have access to understanding your ADHD. You'll also have how to coach yourself with ADHD, which is really about how to work with your brain. Okay. Then over the coming months, we're going to be adding emotional regulation and dopamine management. So there are courses that you've got access to as soon as you come in. You've also got a community. So there is a community element where we are all supporting each other, talking, asking questions, sharing what's working, what's not, all of that. And the community is so powerful because it really normalizes so much of our own experience and puts words to things that we didn't necessarily know were an ADHD thing or were something that, could be supported or helped or was something that we're even struggling with, right? So there's the community, there's the courses, and then as I was explaining, there's the coaching Q&A calls. So you can come along and either have coaching or ask questions. And if you don't know what coaching is, it's a beautiful opportunity to come along and see other people getting coached and sort of learn, but also I can help you understand that, right? But all you do is show up and ask a question. That's it, okay? So that is now open. That is ADHD Home. And it is for adults with ADHD to help them work with their brains, help them understand their ADHD and work with it instead of fighting against it, which we've been doing for so long, trying to be neurotypical in a world not designed for us. But when we learn how to work with our brains, life gets so much easier. Right? So that is what I want for you, my friends. The other thing that we have in there is a monthly masterclass. So in the month of December, I am teaching a class on emotional regulation. And so that is going to be in there. And there are going to be loads of replays and lots of little bonuses coming up. So my friends, if you're listening to this in real time, I invite you to go and check it out while we've got a founding member special, because I am doing, if you want to join for 6 months, it's a monthly membership, so you can cancel any time. But if you do want to commit to 6 months, I am giving it for the price of 3. So it's like a half price for 6 months. So my friends, I'm going to put a link in here. If you want to come and check it out, I highly invite you to, because if you're enjoying the podcast, it is everything here on the podcast put into a place where we help you apply it. We help you to apply everything, or I help you to apply everything that I teach and share and coach on here on the podcast in your life. Okay? So I want to invite you. Come along, check it out. ADHD Home is what we have called it, or what I've called it. I say we because I'm all about the community. Like, we are creating a community, and there will be other people in there supporting you, not just me. All right, my friends, let's get to the 5-minute win. So first of all, I want you to think of what is something you are avoiding. Like, perhaps it's one of those mundane tasks that ADHD is often struggle with. So it could be folding and putting away the laundry, or it might be meal prepping, something you're wanting to do, but keep avoiding, or it might be going for a walk. Okay, I want you just to think of something. Maybe it's even phoning the doctor to make an appointment. Maybe it's ordering the supplements you ran out of weeks ago. What is something you are avoiding? So I want you to have that thing in mind. For me, it is folding and putting away the laundry. I can leave that for weeks, like to the point where I go searching because I've got no clean underwear or no socks. I have to go looking, and I'm like, I probably should do something with this, a giant pile of laundry, right? So before we get into that thing that we're avoiding, I just want us to go through a bit of a recap, okay? We know our ADHD brains have got lower levels of dopamine, and dopamine plays a big role in motivation, okay? So the dopamine that we get released, that chemical messenger in our brain that is released, it plays a big role in motivating us to act and do things, okay? It also plays a big role in some of our brain functions, specifically focus. So focusing on something and attention, paying attention to something. So this means that we've got a tendency to avoid mundane tasks, all right? Like, doing the dishes. It could be brushing your teeth even, or like I said, folding laundry, those kind of mundane things. It also means that we've got a tendency to avoid things that we think are hard, and that's different for each of us in how what we believe is hard, right? But if we think something is very hard, we are more likely to leave it, because our brain does this mental behind the scenes calculation and goes, I don't have enough dopamine to do that. Like, that's going to take a lot out of me. Now, we also have a tendency to avoid things where we look at something and we go, the effort level required to do that doesn't how do I want to say this? The effort required to do that doesn't give me enough of a reward for me to want to do it. So let me give you an example. If you were to phone to make an appointment, right? Like the other day I had to phone my doctor to make an appointment. And I had this on my to-do list for a little while, and I was like, I'll just do it tomorrow, right? Like I just kept putting it off because in my brain, I just don't like phoning to make appointments. It's just something I don't like. And I know many of our neurodiverse community don't like doing that. So I can just avoid it until it's like, yeah, I can't avoid that anymore. So when we look at that and go, me making that phone call doesn't give me any like reward, like I'm not going to, get a chocolate bar at the end of making that phone call, or, it's not like I'm placing an online order and then all of a sudden I get this parcel in the mail and I'm really excited. Like there's no kind of reward to doing that apart from the satisfaction of knowing like I can cross it off the list, right? So again, our brains have a tendency to avoid these sorts of tasks. Now, ADHD brains produce dopamine when tasks are interesting. Okay, we produce dopamine when something has a high level of stimulation, when it is stimulating to us. Again, this is unique to each of us. Also, when a task has a strong incentive or a more immediate reward, again, that's going to produce dopamine and then we're going to take action. Okay, so let me give you an example of this. A few months back now, my partner and I, we were out walking. And we came across this old set of shelves on the side of the road, and they were like an off-white color. They were pretty gross kind of a color, and they were covered in like dirt. And somebody had like plants on them. There were like stains where like the saucers had been. They were pretty like messed up. And they're on the side of the road, which around here where I live, like you put something on the side of the road if you think somebody else might want it, right? And they'd take it. One man's trash is another man's treasure and all that, right? So we're walking past these and I like stop, and all of a sudden I can see these shelves. They're like this unique shape, and I'm like, I can see these freshly painted, nice and white in the corner of my living room, covered in lush green plants. And I tell my partner this, and he's like, what? That needs to go to that tip. Heck no. And so we go off on this walk, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, no, I can see it. And he tries to take me back a different way so we don't go past these shelves because he knows I'm still thinking about it. Anyway, I managed to go past these shelves and I pick him up. And this is like, I don't know, about 6 o'clock in the evening on a Friday. I pick him up and he puts his hood on and like hustles in front of me like, I'm not being seen with you with those shelves. And I drag him back to our house. And I kid you not, less than 24 hours later, I had multiple coats of white paint, like I'd cleaned them up, made them crisp and white. They were in the corner of my living room with freshly potted green plants, and they look epic. If I remember, I'll actually put it in the podcast graphic so that you can see it. But I was so stoked with them, okay? So how does this relate back to what I was trying to tell you? So again, I was explaining how our brains produce dopamine when a task is interesting, when there's either a high level of stimulation or a strong incentive like an immediate reward. For me, as soon as I saw those shelves and I could visualize what they could be, and I'd already been wanting something to put some plants on in the living room. So as soon as I was aware of that, the dopamine was released into my system because I could see the reward. I was incentivized by seeing what this could be and knowing that I could bring it to life. And to me, it was really interesting, right? So again, there's like all the stimulation happening. So literally less than 24 hours later, I'm out there like trying to blow these shelves to dry so that I can do my next coat. Like I'm just so into it. But that is exactly a beautiful example of how when we're really into something, we can produce so much dopamine and make it happen so quickly. Okay. So then the question becomes, well, how do we get our brain on board with tasks that are not so interesting, right? How do we get our brain on board with like the boring and the hard stuff or the stuff we just don't want to do? Hello, laundry. I'm still looking at you. So what we want to do is we want to add an element of one or more of the following, okay? Novelty. If we can make it novel, our brain will produce dopamine. If we can make it interesting, our brain will produce dopamine. If we can add an element of challenge or urgency, our brains will produce dopamine. And this is what we can do, my friend. I'm going to show you exactly how in a moment. Now, I want to give you another example of this because one of the things I actively go out of my way to avoid is writing. And unfortunately, I have to write quite a lot in my job. Like I have got workbooks inside ADHD Home. Each course has its own workbook that I've developed. I've also got emails. So I send out emails each week. One goes out with a podcast. I send out typically a Friday email. And then like doing the launch of ADHD Home means I've got to write all of these other emails to go with that, right? So anything that requires me to get what's in my head out and onto a piece of paper. Oh my God, I could avoid that for a long time. That's why I love podcasting. I just show up and like put some bullet notes on my notes in front of me here and just chat with you all. And I love that, right? It's also why I love like teaching a masterclass and, you know, showing up and coaching people and answering questions because, you know, you don't have to have it all written down. Does that make sense? I know some of you are like, yeah. So again, one of the things I actively avoid is writing. So how do I get my brain on board with that? I will often go for a walk. So as you guys probably know, if you listen to the podcast, I like to walk. I walk every day, 10,000 steps. And that is so good for my mental and emotional health, trust me. But anyway, I go walking. And because I'm going to go walking anyway, I take my phone and I dictate into my phone what it is I want to say, whether it's like notes for the workbook, things that I want to include, or whether it's like an email and what I want to say, what I want to include, etc. And I will dictate it into my phone and my phone literally just types it up. Okay. Then here's what I do. In order to get it finished, in order to get it, you know, in the email ready to go or in the workbook formatted and, you know, finished in there, what I do is I charge my laptop and then I leave the charger at home and I go to my favorite cafe. Now, my favorite cafe has a lot of novelty and interest, and I always feel like people are kind of like watching you, so there's kind of this pressure to work. It's great. Even though they're not, but it kind of feels like that, right? So I do that, but leaving the charger at home creates the deadline because my laptop is only going to last a few hours before it dies. Again, I typically put my headphones in and like I have a certain playlist that I listen to, and that again just like creates that ideal environment for me to do the thing that I would otherwise actively avoid. Okay? So, my friend, coming back to the thing that you are avoiding. Perhaps it's a doom pile of laundry that's taken over your living room, right? Maybe it's just the thought of going for a walk. Maybe it's a bunch of unopened mail that is collecting dust. Here's what I invite you to do. I invite you to set a timer and do just 5 minutes. That's it, just 5 minutes. Now, there is only one rule. When the timer goes off, you must celebrate, okay? This part is so important because when we get a win, and 5 minutes is a win, when we get a win, our brain produces dopamine. Dopamine feels good and it produces motivation. Okay? So, 5 minutes, my friend, it's always a win. 5 minutes of walking, 5 minutes of folding the washing, 5 minutes of brain dumping, getting what's in your head out of your head onto a piece of paper, right? Especially if you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed. That is such a powerful thing to do and you will feel so much better for it. Okay. It could be 5 minutes of breathing if you're feeling, stressed and you just need some time to kind of calm down to help your body settle. If you're in that fight or flight state, just 5 minutes. It could be 5 minutes of opening the mail that's been piling up for ages, right? It could be 5 minutes of planning out your project. 5 minutes is a win. And we all have 5 minutes. I don't know about you, but let me be honest with you. I spend more than 5 minutes a day on social media, and I spend more than 5 minutes a day watching some form of Netflix type TV. I definitely spend more than 5 minutes a day patting my cat, and I spend 5 minutes a day staring off into space, and probably 5 minutes just faffing about. So yeah, we all have 5 minutes. It's just 5 minutes, my friend. Okay. So one of my clients is learning a new language in just 5 minutes a day. How cool is that? Just 5 minutes a day. Another client is building the habit of regular exercise with just 5 minutes a day. I am cleaning my house 5 minutes at a time. Okay? 5 minutes speaks to our brain and the way in which it produces dopamine. Okay? 5 minutes is a challenge. There's a deadline. It's novel. And we can also make it even more interesting by adding another layer. So maybe you play your favorite song, or you listen to a podcast. Maybe you listen to this one at the same time. Like maybe you race your partner. I've done this before. Race your partner to see who can fold more washing. Right? There are thousands of ways, like really creative ways to make our tasks more novel, interesting, challenging, or urgent. Okay? And we can literally change our lives 5 minutes at a time. I use this tool all the time, right? Just spend 5 minutes on this podcast, right? That's how I started this episode today. The next thing you know, right, the timer went off and I celebrated, but I just kept going. I was in the zone then. So I just kept going. And then 20 minutes later, I'm like, oh yeah, it's ready. Like I'm ready to record it now. And I was like, oh, this is awesome, right? Remember, there's just one rule, my friend. You must celebrate. When the timer goes off, you must celebrate that you've done 5 minutes of this thing. You celebrate you. You celebrate that you did it. Right? It's just 5 minutes. And that 5 minutes will boost your dopamine. That 5 minutes will move you forward. That 5 minutes will make a difference. Okay? I am cheering you on right alongside you. Okay? I'm changing my life 5 minutes at a time, just like you. All right, my friend? It's just 5 minutes, and 5 minutes is always a win. Huge love. And I hope to see you inside ADHD Home. If not, I will see you. Well, I won't see you, but I'll be speaking to you right here on the podcast next week. Huge, huge love. Take care. Hey, ADHDer. I know just how hard it can be when it feels like your ADHD is really holding you back. You're frustrated, overwhelmed, and not sure where to even start. That is exactly why I created ADHD Home. ADHD Home is a monthly membership, and it is what I wish I had had when I was diagnosed later in life, when I was struggling and just desperate to feel better, searching for a way that I could finally live up to my potential. Now I'm giving you the tools and the coaching that have changed my life, with over 60 videos to help you navigate and thrive with ADHD. Plus, you get group coaching calls with me, regular ADHD workshops on topics like RSD, dopamine, and emotional regulation. And you've got a community of other adults with ADHD who have got your back. It's time to make ADHD work for you. Visit ADHDhome.com and join us today. I can't wait to coach and support you. Let's go, my friend.